here's what we got. This girl, Engla Höglund, 10 years old, went missing back in 2008. Now, at first, police didn't really have a lot of evidence to go off of. There was her missing bike, some tire tracks, a couple eyewitnesses. Nothing concrete, though, nothing that would lead them to her kidnapper. But this photo, the last known photo of her alive, cracked the case wide open. That's what we're going to talk about today. Just a quick disclaimer. These Swedish pronunciations, man, I have been agonizing over them for like the entire morning trying to figure these out. I want to get them right. I'm going to do my best. I'm not Swedish. The most Swedish experience I have is IKEA. So if I don't get these right,
Swedes will love that.
Yeah, if I don't get this right, I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna do my best. With that being said,
You can do it.
let's start with some background. April 5th, 2008. We're in Hwansjön, Sweden. It's this tiny village, less than 200 people. Engla Höglund had been at the local community center all morning for soccer practice, and she was finally ready to go home. Her mom, Karina, had dropped her off there earlier in the morning, but she decided that she wanted to ride her bike home. After all, it was only like 3 miles down the road from the community center. So Engla calls up her mom and asks if she can ride her bike home. At first, Karina was a little hesitant. She was pretty nervous about the bike ride, even though it was so short. But against her better judgment, she gives Engla the green light. She says she can ride her bike home on one condition. Every 10 minutes, Karina was going to call Engla on her cell phone just to make sure that she was okay and that she didn't want to ride home. You know, she'd been playing soccer all morning, so there was a chance that Engla got like a mile into the bike ride, got tired, and would want Karina to come pick her up. Engla excitedly agreed, grabbed her bike from the community center, and started her journey home.
This hasn't worked out in the past.
I would say, ever since the Tara Calico story, anytime a child is like, I'm going to ride a bike home, I don't like it.
It feels like a lot of these stories happen on bikes. I mean, you said Tara Calico, and then we also had Amber Hagerman, because she was riding her bike when she got kidnapped. I just think about all the times when I was a kid and my parents just let me ride my bike throughout the neighborhood, wherever, it didn't matter.
Here's something interesting though, compared to the last, like you mentioned that Amber and Tara, but they seem like they're taking a lot more steps to be like, it's not even like, hey, call me when you're there. Every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot.
I'm going to call you every 10 minutes on this bike ride until you get home.
That's a lot of precautions.
This was a mom on her guard.
Yeah, she was definitely doing everything that she could to make sure, hey, I'm going to give you this little bit of freedom, but also I'm going to check in on you and make sure that you're good. And also, again, this is a very small community. Like I said, less than 200 people. It's the kind of place, I know this is a cliche, but everybody really did know each other in that area. But obviously, this doesn't go quite how she thinks it's gonna go. Just like she promised, Karina called Engla 10 minutes into her bike ride. She picked up, said she was doing all right, and that she would be home soon. Karina figured that she had probably 20 minutes left in the bike ride, so she just decided not to call her again. She wanted to give her some freedom, some space. But little did she know, that was the last time she would speak to her daughter. You see, 20 minutes came and went, but Engla, she never made it home. That's when Karina started to panic. She got in her car and drove along the exact route Engla would have taken from the community center. But by the time she got there, she hadn't seen any sign of her daughter. On her way back to the house, she flagged down a couple that was walking along the side of the road. She asked them if they had seen Engla, and to her surprise, they had seen her. She was probably less than half a mile away from the house, and she was still riding her bike. So Karina drove that last half mile extra slowly, trying to see if there was any sign of Engla. And that's when she saw it. Engla's bike, abandoned in the middle of the woods, just 500 feet away from their house. She knew that Engla wasn't strong enough to drag that bike into the woods by herself. Somebody else had to be involved. And that's when she saw the tire tracks. Somebody had backed their car up into the mud, and clearly they'd sped away in a hurry because they left those tracks behind. Karina's heart sank into her stomach. She knew that something wasn't right here. So she sprinted back to the house and called the police. Engla was officially missing.
Ooh. Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's quite... So he was 500 feet away from the house.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's close.
Yeah, I was about to say, that could logically be in eye shot of the house.
Yeah.
This is what's crazy. Like, that could be whoever did this, the person with her could have been like their neighbor.
Yeah, I was about to say, in a town where everybody knows everybody, your first instinct is, I might know who just took my daughter.
Exactly. So that's kind of where the police started operating when they came in onto this case. Police immediately opened up an investigation into Angla's disappearance. They pulled out all the stops. They dispatched helicopters to the sky, sent boats out to a nearby lake to check for a body, and the entire town rallied behind them too. They all volunteered to aid in the search. Remember, this is a community of less than 200 people, so a kid going missing, that's a big deal. After a few days of searching, there was still no sign of Angla. But then, one volunteer discovered a piece of evidence that blew the case wide open. This guy, Tomas Langtun, he'd been out on a walk the same day that Angla disappeared. Apparently, he just got a new digital camera and he was going to test it out. When he went to look back at the photos he took, 2 of them stood out to him. The first is this photo of Angla on her bike. It's one of the last known photos of her alive, and it wasn't taken too far away from her house. And the second photo is of this red Saab that was following closely behind Angla while she was on her bike. At the time, Tomas didn't think anything of these photos, but they ended up being all the evidence police needed to find Angla's kidnapper.
What a lucky break.
Right?
Oh my God.
That is incredible.
I know,
That's
right place, right time.
Yeah.
That's something you really, because what year is this?
This is 2008.
Yeah, this is 2008. That's way more common now because, cameras are always on. Like the odds that you just catch something are way higher. But in 2008, you've got a camera that's got maybe 8 megabytes of storage on it.
So again, he had literally just got it. He was testing it out and he had seen her, he said, riding her bike. And he was like, oh, I wonder how crisp the photos will be with motion.
Yeah.
Takes a photo of her, looks at it. Oh, it's pretty clear. Oh, what about something that's moving a little faster, like a car? So he takes a photo of this car that's coming up right behind her. Turns out that was all the evidence police needed to figure out who had killed her.
So I guess the question is who had killed her.
Exactly. Using the license plate number on the car, police were able to track down a man named Anders Eklund. He was a truck driver from a nearby town in Sweden. When they brought him in for questioning, Anders said he had nothing to do with Angla's disappearance. He'd never even seen the girl before. But when they looked inside of his red Saab, they found evidence of Angla's blood on the back seat. They also confirmed that his tires were an exact match for the tracks that were left where her bike was recovered. When police confronted him with that information, Anders folded immediately. He confessed to Angla's kidnapping and her murder. He took them to where he had disposed of her body, and according to police, she was completely unrecognizable. Anders had burned her body with gasoline, so they had to identify her through dental records. It was all very disturbing, but it wasn't the only thing that police uncovered about Anders.
I was about to say, unfortunately, this seems like we've hit the conclusion of this story really quickly.
Yeah. So what I can tell you is that Angla is not Anders' only victim, and it's not the only crime that he has committed. It turns out this wasn't Anders Eklund's first crime. He'd been arrested before for sexual misconduct, buying alcohol from minors, attempted assault, the list just goes on. But the longest sentence he ever served in prison? Under 2 years. And when he got out, things only got worse. On June 4th, 2000, a woman named Pernilla Hellgren was murdered in a city called Falun. That's like an hour away from where Angla was murdered. And just like Angla, she was killed not too far away from her home. There was actually one witness to this murder, and based off a description they gave police, they were able to come up with a list of 64 possible suspects from 2 nearby counties, 38 from Gävleborg and 26 from Dalarna. Now, no one is really sure how this happened, whether it was police negligence or if something just got lost in translation, but the 38 suspects from Gävleborg never got investigated. And number 21 on that list was the actual killer, Anders Eklund. 2 separate tips also came into the police department in 2006 and 2007, saying they thought that Anders might have something to do with Pernilla's murder, but for some reason, those tips were also never investigated. When police arrested Anders for Angla's murder, he confessed to Pernilla's murder too, which means that he should have been behind bars a long time ago, in 2000 when they had the original list, or 2006 and 2007 when they got those other tips. If the police had actually done their job, then Angla would be alive. She would have made it home that day.
Why? Why are we ignoring it? Like, why?
So a lot of what people talked about after this case happened was because Sweden has so few murders, their police departments are often not equipped to investigate them. That's how bad it is. It's like, yeah, it's a great thing that people aren't getting killed there, but because of that, the police department has no experience investigating these kinds of things. Again, this is back in 2000 when Pernilla was killed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this story is a roller coaster, really, because it just, you start with this like immense high of being like, wow, thank God that guy took that photo so that we could solve this crime and put this guy behind bars. And then you figure out, oh, this dude should have been in prison a long time ago.
Yeah.
He should have never been able to even kill this young girl in the first place. Just to wrap everything up real quick, Anders was charged with Angela's murder, he was charged with Pernilla's murder, and he was also charged with a couple other crimes that police had evidence for. So it's kind of the stuff that you would expect, an assault charge in another country, as well as some stuff that they found on his computer. And that led to him being sentenced to life in prison. Now, he's been serving out that sentence ever since 2008. He actually tried to apply for early release in 2018, I think. Big shock they didn't let him out. And they're still investigating other crimes that he might be involved in, not just in Sweden, but also in countries like Norway and Denmark. Now, there really is no bright side to this story, but I do have a picture that I want to show you guys. And to say that when I saw this photo, it didn't bring me just a little bit of karmic joy would be a lie. But in 2014, 6 years after he was sentenced, Anders was being held in a Swedish prison, and some of the other inmates snuck a hammer into the prison
good.
and just beat the shit out of him. So
Well deserved.
Yep, deserved indeed. That is the story of Angela Höglund, and since her passing, the Swedish police departments have made every effort to kind of improve their investigations into murder so that something like this never happens again. And I mean, like I said, the murder rate in that country is extremely low. It's like 100 people a year.
That's crazy that just one photographer taking one photo
Yeah.
locked away a monster like that.
I know.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
That's a great title, by the way. Can we use that? You think
Sure.
that's-